Hello, it's Sarah Jane from Sarah Jane Farrell and Vital Animal Talk. And today I want to speak to this problem that I commonly hear from my clients who are frustrated, exasperated, and very concerned about recurring ear infections in their animals, where they've gone to the vet, they clean their ears out, they put their dogs under anesthetic, and then they send people home with ear wash and corticosteroids, which are the worst thing that you can do. So if you're one of those dog animal lovers that have a dog that has recurring ear infections and varying from chronic or mild, but really just smelly ears, and you get relief for a certain amount of time, and it goes back to what it was or worse before, to just know that there is help available and it is natural. My mantra is be your own medicine. So this is not just education, but also information that you can apply in a way that your dog no longer has to have these chronic ear infections, and give them some relief, because otitis externa, as it's called, is one of the types of ear infections in dogs that's very common, and one that I see a lot from people that really run the gamut on Western medicine, and yet there is no relief for their animals. So just know otitis is caused by a variety of microorganisms. It can be bacterial, it can be fungus, it could be a yeast. And thanks to my Parama Body Talk and my Chinese medicine background, it's very easy through animal communications to ask the dog, where are you feeling it, and will this help? So if you're interested in learning about animal communications, do be sure to check out my Being Human Through Animal communication talk. It's a very, very, very precise, concise, very fully rounded online home study program where I really go into depth on feeding and addressing all 5 levels of healing: body, mind, and spirit. Because most healing that I have seen in my practice happens on the spiritual level. So being able to communicate and have a two-way dialogue, to have your animal with you, to be able to give you accurate feedback as to what's working and what's not working, really will cut out a lot of the guesswork, and in most cases a lot of very invasive procedures to find out what the mystery disease is. So today I want to speak to how can you help your animal that has itchy ears, or constant inflammation in their ears, or constant yeast infections. And I want you to just know that, the result of a lot of these is coming from hypersensitivity to disease, foreign bodies, in hypothyroidism, autoimmune diseases, parasites, and also the use of inappropriate treatments or very irritating cleansers that are very hard in a very sensitive part of your animal's body. So some of the symptoms that I like to use, I love using nature as medicine, and a lot of my background, as I've said, and some of you know, is very strongly based in Chinese medicine and herbal remedies that come from Ayurveda, because they work just as fast as invasive or veterinary drugs and big pharma that cause a lot of toxic burden on your dog's liver or on their kidneys. Remember, the kidney 27 points are in the ear. So if you want to help your animal too, having really good soft massage around the ear is always a very good way to activate and stimulate good kidney response. So the body works better, circulation improves, lymphatics improve, and it'll also help with getting your animal to have a very healthy immune system. So some of the ways that you can know whether your animal is suffering from an ear infection is, a lot of times you'll see they do this head shaking thing, to the point where my own dear Pongo, my Dalmatian, who was actually deaf in one ear, which is common as a genetic trait of that breed, with blue eyes, he shook his head so much and actually created a hematoma in his ear. And I just mixed up a beautiful blend of my natural remedy with pau d'arco in it. It's got olive leaf extract in it, and it's got a whole lot of really natural homeopathic dosages of things like aloe vera that really took away that irritability and got him to stop shaking his head. Low level sort of crying or whining is another way, and also constant scratching. So if you see your dog, with his paw in his ear and he's constantly scratching, there's something going on there, and we need to find out whether it's microparasites, parasites, if it's a yeast infection, what is going on. So if you go to a vet, most of the times they'll take a swab, but in my practice, you're looking for signs that the ears feel very hot, or they show evidence of scratching and irritation. So just gently swabbing the ear canal with a nice big soft ball of organic cotton wool may reveal a very gooey brown to black discharge that's quite smelly. So in Western medicine, after flushing and cleaning the ear canal, often under general anesthetic, which we really don't want because it puts extra strain on your animal's liver and heart to put them under like that. And then their bodies have to then work extra hard at eliminating all the toxins from the anesthetic. But generally that's what they do. And then they'll prescribe an antibiotic or a combined antibiotic or steroid preparation. And in the worst, sort of most chronic cases, they'll tell you that they need to do surgery to open the ear canal to improve circulation. Because in these cases of otitis externa, they don't respond to normal treatment. And remember too, overuse of antibiotics is not good for you or your beloved animal companion either. So, there's a lot wrong with antibiotics. I always say only use antibiotics when it's a life-threatening situation, not for mild infections. And because of this, a lot of times our animal bodies are actually becoming antibiotic resistance. So, unfortunately, many of the sort of standard preparations to clear up ear infections contain cortisone or corticosteroids, and the theory being that they counteract inflammation and then diminish the pain and irritation. But for me, I think that's very extreme and it's not necessary, and I almost never use them because I get great results with the natural remedies. It's just like steroids really are like putting a Band-Aid on a problem. And I like to get to the root cause of what created this in the first place and work from there. So it's a very functional, integrative approach that I use, not just a quick fix of Band-Aid that looks good for a while and then comes back. Because the adverse side effects of steroids is enough to make anyone who can read them very hesitant to ever use them again. So, cortisol, any kind of corticosteroid for me is a no-no. And, in my experience, I've found that many antibiotic preparations commonly used for otitis, they do a fair job on bacterial infections, but the reduction of bacteria is often followed by severe fungal or yeast overgrowth, which is why most of the time if you go on an antibiotic, they always say to you, take a probiotic. So, we need to also look at this from a gut health issue. That most of the time the skin responds as a second lung. So if I ever see anything like that come up in my furry animal clients, I want to look at always healing from the gut first. So if your animal is on kibble, throw it out. Get them onto a good, very healthy, appropriate diet for their species. So obligate carnivores and cads. Dogs, they're natural foragers, so they'll eat blueberries. They'll eat eggs. They'll eat things. They're foragers. And they need a variety of live food in their diet. And as much as we don't like it, this is why they eat cat poop, because it's been half digested already and it has a lot of the good bifidos and the natural probiotics that they need to actually assist in the rest and digest stage. So I always recommend getting animals off of any kind of carbohydrate or high sugar diet. Kibble is just poison, and really starting to look at, feeding a good range of seasonal live food, and sometimes cooking it if your animals are fussy. And I cover this in great depth in my Pause for Raw, Whole Food for Healthy, Happy Pets book, which you can find on Nook and on my website. So take a look at that. And even if you feel like you can't afford to feed your animals live food, there's another video that I did about why you can't afford not to feed them a species appropriate diet. And I'll link that up in the post below. But just know that, we want to look at this from a place of very accurate diagnosis. So, visually looking at the pet's ear canal, taking a swab to identify the primary bugs involved is often rule of thumb. And for me, herbs are my primary line of defense and my first choice for all external ear infections. So obviously, I'm not a vet, so remember always to consult your trusty veterinary practitioner. But, also follow your own gut knowing, and also look at the response that your animal has when you start to change things up a little bit. So I always recommend several herbs, and I'm going to post a cheat sheet below this video for you to look at and try it for yourself. But if your pet's ears are relatively clean, just a mild mix of organic apple cider vinegar and water in equal proportions, or an occasional herbal preparation, which I mix up for my clients depending on what we're dealing with. That can vary from, oregano, marjoram, essential oils in very small quantities with apple cider vinegar, aloe vera, and colloidal silver. They're great as far as healing and cleaning and calming down the inflammation in the ears and also in the gut. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, let me know, and I'll be happy to share that with you. So just remember that, cleaning never with a Q-tip, but nice big soft cotton bulb. Their ears are very different to ours, and we need to make sure that we really honor that they're very sensitive. Their dog's sound ability to hear is so much greater than ours, and we need to honor that, that they're very much more sensitive to invasive sort of digging, in that we're not digging in the dog's ear or the cat's ear with cotton buds. We shouldn't be even doing that ourselves. And besides that, they're terrible for the ocean. So nice big bowl of cotton wool with a nice mix of a solution of, as I said, aloe vera, apple cider vinegar, colloidal silver, and just swabbing and wiping your dog's ears, especially if they're one of these dogs that have big ears, like hush puppies, or my Great Dane is very hot. He's very vata in his predisposition. So he does run hot, and when he starts shaking his ears, I know that I just need to get it out, and I do a little squirt and a little clean, and then he's off to go again. Chiropractic can also help with chronic ear infections. I use cervical subluxation. I can't speak right today, where we're looking at partial dislocation of the neck vertebrae, and just adjusting sometimes those upper cervical vertebrae. It's kind of, think of it like the hook that hooks onto the head. It just makes sense to me. And I've seen some really dramatic cures of using chiropractic along with herbal remedies to make dramatic changes in animals that have spent years struggling with ear infections. And of course, I love otitis herbs, like really getting those drops into the ear canal to bring the ear flora back into balance. And I use a lot of herbs that enhance the immune system, like golden seal, like pau d'arco, like oregano and calendula, because they thwart a lot of microorganism growth, and they do relieve pain and inflammation. So you can get a lot of these herbs commercially And usually it's always a mixture of several herbs in a tincture or a sort of herbal oil form. So just look for them in health foods. If you're not in my area, I'm happy to mix up solutions for disease specific, because not all ear infections are born equal either. And I love mullein. Mullein is one of the most incredible herbs that nature has gifted us with. And it's very easy to make a preparation for mild infections, where you just sort of pack mullein leaves and the flowers into a glass jar. I like to add a lot of a garlic clove or two, and just let it sit for 2 or 3 weeks. And then you strain it and just apply several drops of that warmed oil into the ear canal. And then you've got a massage for, a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. And then if your dog shakes his head, that's great. But we really want to get it down into the inner ear canal. And of course, I'm always looking at prevention, because prevention is better than cure. So I always recommend using a very mild herbal ear remedy once a month or two, every 2 weeks, throughout your pet's lifetime, both internally and topically into the ear canal. But for infections, the duration of the use can vary on a case-by-case basis for one or two applications daily for a few weeks. Generally, I put chronic ear infections on a strict protocol of using the ear solution for 12 days, and then seeing how it looks. Normally, by then it's cleared up, and then it's just once every 2 weeks to use that. Some of the herbs that I really, really love, nature is medicine. I love chamomile. It has a very relaxing anti-inflammatory, anti-analgesic, sedative, and it has antiseptic qualities as well. It's perfect for soothing sore ears. So you can also take that internally, because it has a great ability to just calm your pet down and help her also sleep through the pain, because if you've ever had an ear infection, it is so painful you can't sleep. So I love that for my human patients as well. St. John's Wort is another one. It has great antibiotic properties, and it's wonderful both internally and externally for just calming your pet down during an infection. Calendula is in my ear solution. It's in part of the blend that I use with the aloe vera, because it has amazing healing abilities, and it's one of the best herbs for treating local skin or external ear problems. So again, you can use this internally or externally as a very potent antifungal herb. And, just like us, if we get sort of candidus albicans in our gut, we always want to look at treating the gut first. I can't say this often enough. So often I've had dogs that have been in pain for years with recurring ear infections. And once we started supporting the gut, getting the gut microbiome strong again by changing the diet, like throw out the kibble, get them onto a species appropriate live raw food diet that's full of good probiotic, full of fiber, ear infections mostly clear up so fast within a week or two. There's none of that left. And a lot of times those dogs with ear infections will also have skin irritations as well, because it's the first direct contact with the environment, and there are so many chemicals and toxins in the air, and our animals are much more sensitive to us. So for me, as I said, the ear shaking, the constant itching, the whining, that's the canary in the coal mine, and you really want to nip it in the bud and actually use some of these things like mullein, like calendula, like garlic, like witch hazel, because they're excellent. Witch hazel is an excellent astringent, and that'll also decrease any swelling in the ear canal and ease the pain, because it's uncomfortable for them to be like that. Mullein is again, it's not always easy to find. I like to try and grow it in my garden. I didn't have a good crop this year because of the water restrictions and the lack of rain, but it comes from it's extracted in olive oil as a very good single remedy to use on its own. Again, very soothing and very healing for inflamed surfaces. So for otitis, that's the solution externally that I use for really getting it deep into the ear canal. And of course, all of those is a symptomatic of a weakened immune system. So we don't want them on corticosteroids. We don't want them to be going in for annual shots. I'm a big proponent for not over vaccinating your animals. They don't need it. They don't need it. Don't give it to them. So stop with the annual vaccinations. Get them onto a raw food diet that's really full of goodness in that. And also look at things like golden seal or a combination of echinacea, and I like Oregon grapefruit. I kind of brew it up as a tea, as a tincture, and then I kind of adjust the dosages based on the animal's weight. So again, if you'd like to have a sort of core session with me that's very specific to healing the gut, so diet is a big one. Stress is another one. We don't want to put stress on our animals' digestive systems by feeding them carbohydrates and refined sugars and actually a whole lot of crap that isn't any nutritional value for your animals. So just know that the good news is that herbal remedies are very effective against fungal and yeast and bacterial infections. And a lot of times, if you use this as part of their sort of weekly routine, you're not going to get yeast overgrowths. And you won't need to use antibiotics. A lot of time, yeast overgrowths are common because of antibiotics that have been given to the animal when you could have actually worked it out on a more Ayurvedic, more dosha type program based on the 5 elements of Chinese medicine. So, just know that we're always looking to soothe while we're healing. And for me, herbal medicals, they're not the magic bullet always for external ear infections in dogs. They act a lot more slowly. So you have to be patient, and you have to also look at feedback from your animal. So while your pet's ears are healing, you may want to give them soothing kind of herbs ingested in valerian or chamomile to just keep them calm and quiet so that their bodies can get on with doing the work of their innate intelligence, which is always to find an optimum way to keep us in perfect balance and our animal friends as well. So if you're interested in knowing more about this, I do have a cheat sheet to show you, my sort of top 5 natural remedies for dogs' ear infections, and also how to treat chronic ear infections and acute conditions with a holistic treatment for ear infections. Chronic yeast is oftentimes it happens to the very kapha dogs, the dogs that are grounded and very earthy, and do tend to put on a little more weight than the other constituents. So we want to look at this in a very sensitive way to what your dog or cat's natural vata Ayurvedic constitution is, what their dosha type is. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go over to sarahjanefarrell.com and take the dosha quiz so that you can know what your animal's primary characteristic type is. Most of the time I see the yeasty ear infections, the chronic ear infections in the earth type of animals, the ones that are very earthy and very warm and tend to have a very slow digestive assimilation because they're natural service animals. They're here to serve. And that's one of the first sort of cues to look at, what's going on with your animal's health. So I hope you found that useful. Post your comments and questions if you have any tips and tools that you use to assist and support your animals keep healthy and happy and vital through ear infections that you've cured with natural remedies. Please share it with us. And above all, just trust that you're enough. You're enough for your animals. You're enough for yourself. Trust your body's knowing. Nobody knows your dog or your cat or your horse better than you do. So trust that, and always ask a lot of questions. Don't trust me. Trust yourself, and ask questions. Get informed. Educate yourself. And try one thing at a time. One last thing I really wanted to say to you is I don't like to throw the whole kitchen sink at things. I'm very much of the method of using one thing at a time. So individual amino acid protocol, one solution of cleaning for the ears, one way of optimizing gut health so that you know what's working and what isn't working. And then, of course, learning how to use animal communications so that you can get it direct from the horse, straight from your horse's mouth or straight from your dog's mouth. It takes out all the guesswork and it takes out the anxiety of wanting to do the best and really helping your animals. So, always find someone that you trust. Find a holistic vet or a holistic alternative practitioner that does integrative functional medicine like I do. And know, that you know what's best for your animals, and you need to trust that you're enough. Okay? So that's it from me. I send you lots of love and pour some blessings and lots of woofs and loves and slobbery kisses. And I will see you back here again. Bye. Lots of love.